What's up, everybody? It's Kyle. And today I'm going to read the first chapter of my book. It's called Expert Expression, a Masterclass in Communication. The first chapter is called Body Language. So here we go. Infants, when they discover the dominion they have over their own corporeal bodies, have begun a lifelong language that unites humans and not human animals alike, body language. Simply, body language is the intentional or unintentional conveyance of information through nonverbal means. Anything from a wave, a nod, a passing glance, a change in weight distribution between the feet, or even a slight narrowing of the shoulders is considered body language. It's important to make a distinction, however, between an unintentional movement, one which is not deliberate, and a movement over which one's brain has no control. Slipping on a banana peel, therefore, is not a form of body language, any more than the twitching of an insect leg following its traumatic removal by an inquisitive toddler. The former distinction, that being the difference between the intentional and unintentional body language, is the primary way by which we can use body language to our advantage, both in being an effective communicator as well as broadening our understanding of the world around us. Once we're able to judge the meaning and prevalence of the set of body language behaviors exhibited by all people, as well as the specific ones individually exhibited, we can begin to interpret nonverbal communication with our own volition, instead of hurriedly absorbing an array of unfamiliar information, only to be aloof to all but the most basic information conveyed. It can be said, therefore, that there are two distinct sets of nonverbal expression, individual expressions, and expression which is conformation. Expression which is conformation is generally shared throughout the individuals which make up a given society. When humans feel certain things, there's a distinct neurochemical response to that stimuli and subsequent physiological expression. While we have control over our thoughts which lead to these neurochemical changes, we do not have direct control over the neurochemical changes, and therefore physiological expression of emotion is by nature never directly intentional. The link between these neurochemical changes and their physical expression is hardly perfect. To a large degree, humans are able to regulate their physical movements, facial expressions, gestures, and any other nonverbal aspects of communication governed by the skeletal muscles. For example, we can smile with our mouth, but not the rest of our face, despite the fact that a natural smile involves the entire facial region. The same is true for any other artificially derived, and therefore intentional, nonverbal communication. By nature, humans are social animals. Humans learn through experience and observation what behavior is conforming behavior and which behaviors are unusual behavior. Through millions of years of evolution, humans have developed these abilities in a most anthropic way. By having an innate ability to judge the thoughts and emotions of other creatures in the habitat, humans are able to piece together a picture of the appropriate behaviors. In the ancestral environment, primarily to stay alive, and in the modern environment, primarily to communicate. A mastery of body language involves a thorough understanding of the meaning of nonverbal communication, the ability to judge which behaviors are conforming versus individual, the ability to self-regulate nonverbal expression, including suppression of unintentional nonverbal expression, the ability to create a mental picture of the range of expressions of individuals, and the metacognition of this expression. Metacognition of that expression is the practice of thinking about the interrelatedness of differing nonverbal gestures, conforming versus individual expression, and its meaning in the larger context of the information otherwise observed. This section is called Understanding of the Meaning of Nonverbal Communication. As people who've grown past the stage of infancy, and even before infancy is foregone, we understand, emotionally, what our gestures mean. Once infancy is foregone, however, humans begin to understand cognitively the meaning of nonverbal communication. That is, we understand that when someone cries, for instance, they're most likely sad. Smiles mean happiness, and so on. Expressed in the cognitive competence model are, of course, 4 levels of competency when it comes to understanding the meaning of nonverbal communication. These are unconscious competence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Needless to say, reaching the level of mastery of understanding of the meaning of nonverbal communication involves attaining a level of natural or non-hindering unconscious competence. Unconscious incompetence of such an understanding expresses itself virtually identically to the symptoms of severe autism. That is, Possessing unconscious incompetence of this understanding is equivalent to being totally aloof to the skeletal, muscular, emotional, as well as unintentional emotional expressions of oneself and those around oneself, or that these markers even have any significance. Conscious incompetence of this understanding manifests as an understanding that one's and others' intentional nonverbal emotional expression, as well as physiological markers of feeling, exist and have meaning. At this level, one does not know how to interpret metacognition of expression with subtlety, as opposed to basically, nor how to determine the identity of conforming versus individual expression. Competence implies that one is able to determine the meaning of nonverbal communication both individually and conformingly, able to utilize an optimal recognition of metacognition, able to accurately identify the significance of volitional as well as unintentional emotional nonverbal expression, and its meaning as part of the entire body of communication presented, as well as its meaning specific to nonverbal communications. What separates conscious and unconscious competence is the cognitive energy and time costs involved with such an understanding. Unconscious competence is being able to identify all of the aforementioned variables and their objective applications without having to expend valuable mental energy or time to arrive at such an optimal understanding. The next section is called the ability to judge which behaviors are conforming versus individual. Conforming behaviors are those which are considered normal within a given population. That is, these unconscious or intentional nonverbal signals are within the perceived range of behavioral responses which would either not be noticed at all or would be unremarkable. Obviously, it's natural to engage in conforming behaviors, and they're virtually ubiquitous. Almost no conforming behaviors are intentional. In the uncommon situation where someone intentionally engages in conforming behavior, almost exclusively this is accompanied by an individual behavior. The reason being that by far the most common conforming behavior or set of behaviors is acting normal. The mental barrier caused by social anxiety, introversion, tiredness, or simply an indisposition to communicate is the most common reason for acting normal. This might seem simplistic or obvious, but it's important when making a judgment between conforming versus individual behaviors, and it's very important to take note of when attempting to understand human nonverbal behavior. The purpose and importance of judging conforming versus individual behavior is the determination of which nonverbal behavior clues are relevant pieces of information, and which ones are automatic and carry little or no communicative value. Individual behavior is that which occurs outside of the range of conforming behaviors. When determining the relevance of nonverbal information, the method is one of subtraction. The formula is simple. One first observes the entirety of a person's communication, determining the background of conforming behaviors upon which their overall behavior is founded. Once that background is determined, the conforming behaviors are subtracted from the total of the behaviors observed. In this way, nonverbal communication is established. The ability to self-regulate nonverbal expression, including suppression of unintentional nonverbal expression. Regulation of nonverbal behavior is bifurcated between single intentional actions and those expressions which are governed by emotionality. Single intentional actions are those which are decided upon and carried out upon this volition. Our infant mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, once he realizes that his hand is his own, is capable of this single intentional action. Moving his hand through the air, he discovers that he's able to self-regulate. This ability for self-regulation is both the basis of rightness of punishment for tortious behavior and the usualness of thanking someone when they give you a bouquet of flowers. The importance of mastery of communication is expressly important when it comes to single intentional actions, as it both allows one to determine the relevance of others' actions as well as the ability to determine the normalness or otherwise rightness of a given action. Obviously, unintentional actions have unintentional consequences often. Conversely, intentionality of action is a powerful tool which opens new avenues of communication. When the brain expresses an emotion, often there's a direct physiological response. That is, emotions govern physiological response and therefore cannot be controlled directly. Those nonverbal actions which are governed by emotionality can be controlled indirectly by changing the emotions one feels. This is achieved either by replacing certain thoughts which lead to unwanted emotionality, or simply by not thinking those thoughts. Often it's difficult to simply not think a thought, so many texts on controlling one's emotionality suggest the replacement of an unwanted thought with a different one. Many athletes find it helpful to think thoughts which pump them up or excite them. Generally, it's helpful to maintain a positive mindset when communicating with others, as this avoids many potentially unwanted nonverbal signals. Signals which, to one who has yet to master their body language, may seem daunting to corral. It's my first chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. The book is coming along. It's a lot to write. There should be about 30 chapters, and I'm on, I think, maybe chapter 8. So I hope you enjoyed this live stream, and my name is Kyle again, and DM for information about communication.